If you've been walking with us here on Following Christ, then you already know. Some stories don't just inform you, they challenge the way you see reality itself. And today, I want to share one of those stories. The staircase you're about to see has been touched, studied, and questioned for over a century. People travel from all over the world to stand before it, and yet no one has been able to fully explain how it exists. Because according to many who believe, this staircase was built by Saint Joseph. Yes, that Saint Joseph, leaving behind something you can still see today, right here in the United States. So how could that even be possible? How could a carpenter from 2,000 years ago appear in the 19th century, complete a masterpiece of engineering, and then vanish without a trace? In this video, we're going to walk through the full story, step by step. But more importantly, we're going to examine the scientific, structural, and historical details that continue to puzzle experts even today. And if you think you already know the mystery of the Loreto Staircase, you may want to reconsider. Because new analysis and overlooked evidence suggests this may be more than just a story of faith. It may be something far deeper, something woven into the very structure of reality itself. The story begins in 1873 in Santa Fe. The chapel of the Sisters of Loreto is nearly complete, a stunning Gothic structure inspired by Saint Chapelle. But just before the final stages of construction, tragedy strikes. The architect, François-Jean Projectus Mouly, suddenly dies, leaving behind an unfinished design. And that's when the problem becomes clear. The choir loft, where the sisters were meant to sing, is positioned nearly 20 feet above the ground, but there's no staircase. And worse, there's no space to build one. Engineers are called in, builders are consulted, every solution is examined, but the answer is always the same. A spiral staircase in that narrow space is structurally impossible. Without a central support column, it would collapse under its own weight, and adding such a column would take up nearly the entire floor below. The only options? Tear down the choir loft, or use a ladder. Neither is acceptable. So they turn, not to engineering, but to faith. They begin a novena, praying for 9 consecutive days to Saint Joseph, the carpenter of the Holy Family. 9 days of silence, of fasting, of prayer. And on the 9th day, something unexpected happens. A quiet knock at the door. An elderly man stands outside, humble, unknown, carrying only a small toolbox and accompanied by a donkey. He introduces himself simply as a builder, and he claims he can solve the problem. But he has one condition. He must work alone. No one is allowed inside the chapel until the job is complete. And from that moment on, everything becomes difficult to explain. No one sees him bring in wood. No wagons arrive. No shipments are recorded. At that time, Santa Fe is nothing more than a small frontier town. A man transporting large amounts of timber would have been impossible to miss. And yet, there is nothing. Only silence. For 6 months, the man works behind closed doors. And then, just like that, the work is finished. When the sisters enter the chapel, they are stunned. A fully completed spiral staircase stands before them. Elegant, precise, unlike anything they have ever seen. But when they go to thank the man, he's gone. No name, no payment, no trace. They search for him. They even visit the only lumber supplier in the region. But the owner insists he never sold wood to anyone matching that description. In fact, he claims he has never seen wood like that at all. And this is where modern science enters the story. In the 1990s, a wood specialist, Dr. Forrest Easley, examined samples from the staircase under a microscope. The expectation was simple: local materials, pine or regional spruce. But that's not what he found. Instead, the wood belonged to a rare type of spruce within the Picea family, with an unusually dense cellular structure, the kind typically found in extreme environments, very cold regions or high altitudes. But here's the problem. That specific variety does not grow anywhere in North America. Some researchers suggest the closest matches exist only in isolated regions of Northern Europe or parts of the Middle East. So how did it get there? How did a single craftsman in the 1800s transport large quantities of rare timber into a remote desert town without roads, railways, or records? From a biological and logistical standpoint, it shouldn't be possible. Now look at the structure itself. The staircase makes 2 complete rotations, 2 full 360-degree spirals, and it contains exactly 33 steps, a number that immediately resonates with Christians. The years of Jesus' life on earth. But the real mystery lies in the engineering. In structural physics, a spiral staircase without a central support is considered inherently unstable. Every step introduces torsional force, twisting pressure that should gradually push the structure outward until it fails. But this staircase behaves differently. It functions like a coiled spring. As weight is applied, instead of weakening, it tightens. It compresses slightly, becoming more stable under pressure. This kind of behavior is only fully understood today using advanced 3D modeling and modern engineering simulations. So the question becomes unavoidable. How could a 19th century carpenter design something that aligns with principles not formally studied until the 20th century? And there's one more detail, often overlooked. There are no metal nails anywhere in the structure, and not even traces of traditional animal-based glue. Every joint is held together through precise wooden connections, crafted with a level of accuracy that borders on surgical. At this point, you have to decide for yourself. Is this simply a lost technique? A forgotten genius? Or are we looking at something that doesn't fully belong to human explanation? Because whatever the answer is, this staircase is still standing, and it's still asking questions. At the time, metal fasteners were already widely used in construction, and yet, this staircase uses none. Every part of the structure is secured with carefully fitted wooden pegs, joined with a level of precision that, even today, many engineers would describe as exceptionally refined. Now here's where the problem begins. The climate in New Mexico is far from stable. Temperatures shift dramatically, humidity rises and falls, and wood, by its very nature, reacts to those changes. It expands, contracts, and gradually weakens over time. Under normal conditions, a structure built without metal reinforcement would begin to loosen within just a few years. It would creak, shift, and eventually become unsafe. But that's not what happened here. For decades, the sisters climbed those steps every single day, and the staircase remained firm, remarkably stable, as if the material itself had resisted the passage of time. Architects who have studied the structure often begin with a simple exercise. If you draw a vertical line from the upper center of the staircase down to the floor, something unusual appears. The center of gravity falls precisely within the inner curve of the base. In practical terms, this means the staircase stabilizes itself through a balance of opposing forces, an internal equilibrium that eliminates the need for a central support. That level of balance is extraordinarily difficult to achieve. Experts note that even a minor deviation, a fraction of a millimeter in curvature, would disrupt the entire structure. And yet, every step aligns perfectly. Remember, this was built inside a dim chapel, with hand tools, no electrical lighting, and no modern measuring systems. Still, no visible errors. Each step mirrors the next with near-perfect uniformity. It doesn't feel improvised. It feels intentional. In recent years, some historians have attempted to provide a more conventional explanation. One of the most cited theories attributes the staircase to a French carpenter named François-Jean Johann Hadwiger. He was known to be skilled, capable, but the theory doesn't fully hold. Records suggest that during the time of construction, Hadwiger was not even in Santa Fe. More importantly, eyewitness accounts from the sisters describe a very different figure. An older man, working entirely alone, with no visible supply chain. And then there's the material problem. Even with today's tools, shaping wood into such tight, continuous curves without cracking the fibers requires controlled industrial processes, typically involving steam bending. There's no evidence that heat was used here. No burn marks, no stress fractures. The wood appears to have been formed with a smoothness that doesn't align with known manual techniques of that era. There's also a detail often overlooked because it's difficult to quantify. Several of the sisters described a subtle sensation while climbing the staircase. A slight movement, almost like the structure adjusted under weight in a controlled, rhythmic way. From a modern perspective, this can be interpreted as a form of dynamic load distribution, similar to how flexible materials absorb force rather than resist it rigidly. And that may explain something important. Over the years, the staircase endured not only daily use but also environmental stress, including minor seismic activity, yet it remained intact. One American engineer, after studying its design, made an interesting observation. It's as if an abstract concept of structural balance was translated directly into wood. Whether one agrees with that statement or not, it points to something undeniable. This is not just craftsmanship, it's precision, executed under conditions where such precision should have been extremely difficult. There's another historical detail worth noting. For nearly 10 years after it was completed, the staircase had no handrail, not because it was overlooked, but because the sisters hesitated to alter it. They considered the structure complete as it was. Only later, for safety reasons, was a railing added, primarily to assist older members of the community. Even then, the original spiral remained unchanged. So what are we left with? A structure built from non-local wood, a design that challenges conventional engineering expectations, a builder who appeared without record and disappeared without explanation, and a result that has endured far longer than most comparable constructions of its time. Now here's the real question. What does this mean for us today? Whether you see this as a miracle, a lost technique, or an unsolved anomaly, the message behind it is what matters. There are moments in life when everything feels constrained, when the path forward seems blocked, when logic tells you there is no solution. And yet, history reminds us, solutions don't always arrive in the way we expect. Sometimes they come quietly, unexpectedly, at the exact moment we've reached the limit of what we can do on our own. If this story speaks to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might be going through a season where nothing seems possible. And if you want to take a simple step of faith with us, write this in the comments. Saint Joseph, guide me when I cannot see the way. Because sometimes the path is already being built, even before we understand how.